Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for coming to this press conference. So I just was able to meet with members of the Legislative Black Caucus. Made available to them to have a conversation to answer their questions, and now after some prepared remarks, I'll answer yours as well. And while I've taken questions on this case on multiple radio shows and other press conferences, I know that I haven't spoken about it as much as the press and the public would like, and I do understand that frustration. But if you bear with me, I'll try to explain. I do try to make myself available as much as possible to the press on any number of topics. And you've heard me say multiple times before from this very podium that what happened to Ronald Greene was horrific, that no family should ever have to experience what the Greene family has experienced and continues to go through. No mother should ever have to see her son die a violent death, and I stand by that. I reiterate that today. And I'm not here to make excuses for what took place. As I've said before, those officers and their actions do not represent the standards to which all law enforcement officers should be held. I have said that too on a number of occasions before today. Further, I have said that the manner in which Mr. Greene was treated that night was criminal. Now let me go further. I cannot imagine that had Mr. Greene been white, he would have been treated that way. And so I think we have to acknowledge racism when we see it. I think we have to make sure that we call it what it is. You know, Mr. Greene was panicked. He was terrified. He was letting the officers know that he was scared. He was calling them their brother. Absolutely heartbreaking and wrong. And we would all do well as individuals and collectively if we would just acknowledge that. And that there is implicit bias in many, many people. And too often, there is outright racism. And we have to do more to identify that early on and separate people from their badges when they're not worthy of wearing one, when they're not committed to serving and protecting the public. Now, I will never do anything, and I have never done anything, to impede or impair an investigation I have never done anything to prevent justice from being served. And I want to back up just a moment with you, because what may not be clear is that before the videos were made public, I declined to characterize them. Not because my opinion was different then than it is today, but because I had been asked by the U.S. Department of Justice that videos not be made public so as not to interfere or interrupt, compromise their investigation. I believe their request applied to my thoughts about the videos as well. However, once they were in the public arena, I no longer felt bound by that limitation, and I expressed the opinion that I felt from the beginning, the opinion I held from the very first time that I saw the videos in October of 2020, that the misconduct seen in the video was criminal. It was wrong. It was inexcusable. I do think it's important for you to have some context about how I learned about the incident. On May the 10th, 2019, I received a text from Colonel Reeves, and this is what it said. Good morning, and FYI. Early this morning, troopers attempted to stop a vehicle in Ouachita Parish. The driver fled through two parishes in excess of 110 miles per hour, eventually crashing. Troopers attempted to place the driver under arrest, but a violent, lengthy struggle took place. After some time struggling with the suspect, troopers were joined by a Union Parish deputy and were able to take the suspect into custody. EMS was summoned to assess the suspect's injuries. The suspect remained combative, but became unresponsive shortly before EMS arrived. The suspect was later pronounced dead at the hospital. We are investigating the suspect's death. I then responded, thank you. This text was released by my office from my phone over a month ago to the Associated Press. As you can see, no other information was given in the text about the individuals involved or the circumstances, certainly no names. And obviously, at the time I received the text, I had not seen any footage and would not see any video of the incident until October of 2020, some 15 months later. After seeing the videos, I know it is impossible to forget the deeply troubling images from Mr. Greene's arrest, from the excessive and I believe unlawful use of force that was used against him by the state police officers at the scene. But I will reiterate that in 2019, all I knew was that an incident had occurred, that it was being investigated. You also need to know that that text was one of many notifications that I received from Colonel Reeves about any number of different issues on a regular basis, whether it's train derailments or bomb threats to fatal crashes to sometimes serious things as officer-involved shootings, or certainly, as in this case, in custody deaths. And these reports come to me from the Superintendent of the State Police without regard to which agencies are involved. So anytime those things happen in the state. And I will tell you, there are too many times, too frequently, tragedies happen in this state. And in most cases, I am made aware of the basic facts soon thereafter. That's the way this incident played out. As governor, I trusted that this matter would be handled appropriately by state police. I have never gotten involved in an investigation by the state police or any other law enforcement agency. And quite frankly, I trusted that I would be made aware of further developments if necessary. But I will tell you, I do not believe the governor, myself, or any governor should ever be involved in directing criminal investigations. That would be entirely inappropriate in my view. And I know from what's being written and said, without any basis in fact, by the way, that there are implications that I knew more, or that one or more of my staff members tried to cover up what happened. I will say that that is simply and categorically false. In September 20th, a number of days after Hurricane Laura, and while we were at GOSEP dealing with that event and with COVID, I learned of the very serious allegations against the state police troopers from the Ronald Greene incident because of the civil litigation that had been filed. And at that point in time, I began to learn the details of what happened that night, the existence of body cameras and dash cameras documenting the events. Subsequent to that, several family members, members of the media, and members of the Legislative Black Caucus asked for the videos to be released to the public. I had my office in turn reach out to the U.S. Department of Justice, then the lead agency in determining whether criminal charges would be brought, and specifically asked the Department of Justice verbally, the department, we asked them whether we could make the videos public. The answer we got back, both verbally and in writing, was that the evidence to include the videos should not be made public because there was a concern that it would impair the investigation, potentially compromise it. So at my request, my staff went back to the Department of Justice and asked, would it be okay with them if we showed the video and evidence to the family members of Mr. Greene, their attorneys, and a number of members of the Black Caucus who had expressed an interest in viewing them. The Department of Justice consented to that. We then worked with the U.S. Attorney for the Western District and District Attorney John Belton, the District Attorney for Union Parish, to make sure that the presentation would be in accord with what they thought was appropriate. And we asked the District Attorney to be the one to actually present the videos and the evidence and to answer whatever questions would come up to the extent that he could. D.A. Belton did do that, and that occurred on October the 14th of 2020. And on that day, I met with members of the Greene family. I did express to them my sympathy for the loss of their son and brother. And on that same day, as I mentioned, several Legislative Black Caucus members were in attendance and saw the videos. I saw the videos for myself for the first time only a few days before. In addition to the videos, there were other items of evidence that were made available to the family as well. I have been asked many times, both in public and in private, my thoughts on the videos. I have also been asked about reports that Mr. Greene's family was told that he died in a car accident. Clearly, anyone who has seen the videos will see that Mr. Greene did not die in a car accident. The initial text I received did not say he died in a car accident. And if anyone ever said that, it was just plain wrong. Despite some recent comments by others, I will tell you that I have never said that Mr. Greene died in a car accident. I haven't said it in public. I haven't said it in private. What I have consistently said is that the cause of death is obviously a part of the investigation, and that the state and federal prosecutors have to make the decision based on the proof that they have available to them, on whatever evidence they have. Another recent allegation is that my office was somehow involved in trying to influence the criminal investigations. That too is categorically false. There is not a shred of truth to that. The communications my office has had with law enforcement and prosecutors in this matter have been to work to coordinate the viewing of the videos and to request that authorities meet with family members to update them on the investigations. Just as I mentioned to you a while ago, I am certain that the district attorney, U.S. Attorney, state police, and the FBI would confirm that at no time did I or anyone in my office attempt to interfere with or influence their investigations in any way. Now, I was made aware in October 2020 of the investigation that was conducted of the events surrounding Mr. Greene's death. At that time, I was made aware that the investigation done by the Louisiana State Police produced a lengthy report along with video evidence that was turned over to the District Attorney for Union Parish, John Belton, on August the 20th of 2019. I think it's important to say that date again. The report was sent to the state prosecutor in August of 2019. Within a matter of weeks, on September the 9th, 2019, Mr. Belton referred this matter to federal authorities, to the U.S. Department of Justice. While I did not know this at the time, it was very important for me to learn of the serious allegations and of the investigation, even though it was over a year since the accident. And the central premise of the AP article is that somehow I was trying to hide or interfere with the investigation to protect my political chances in an election year. And I will tell you that despite the fact that this goes beyond every ounce of my being, every ounce of my character and my principles, it is just simply not who I am. It's not what I do. I can't even conjure the words in my mind to ask or direct that a criminal investigation be delayed or changed or altered or any of those things. It didn't happen. But I'll tell you, it doesn't make any sense either. If I was interfering with the investigation because of the election, how does it make sense that the videos and the investigative files were turned over to the DA and to the Trump Department of Justice a month and a half before the election in 2019? It doesn't make sense. It didn't happen. Nothing like that has ever happened because of me. That is not who I am as a person. Again, I did not know at the time in 2019 that these files and videos had been turned over, that the matter had been referred to the U.S. Department of Justice, because precisely it is not my role to be involved in the investigation. However, the facts are clear that the evidence of what happened that night was presented to prosecutors well before my election, state and federal prosecutors. And I'll just remind you, to the Trump Department of Justice at a time when the president was coming to Louisiana to campaign against me. I will not speculate on the outcome of the state and federal investigations. However, I completely and fully agree with the Greene family that they deserve answers and a full accounting of what happened to their son and to their brother that night. They also deserve a resolution to this matter. I am hopeful that all of the information being considered by the prosecutors will be available for the family sooner rather than later. And you should all know that we worked with state police and with the Black Caucus and the law enforcement community in general to make change, to make positive change. Those include that it is now cause for termination if an officer does not intervene. It is cause for termination for not using a body camera. Choke holds are now banned, along with the use of impact weapons to the head and neck. Further, supervisors are now required to review and track excessive force incidents. There's still a lot of work to do. When Colonel Lamar Davis became head of the state police in October 2020, we talked about the need for better transparency, accountability, and above all, how to prevent violent deaths like Mr. Greene's from happening in the first place through things like better training and supervision. And I will reiterate, the way we all saw Mr. Greene being treated by law enforcement on those videos certainly should have never happened. But more emphatically, should never, ever happen again. No one deserves to be treated that way. And I do believe we have to recognize and face that many people have implicit bias, and we can work through that. But there are some people in whom racism is so entrenched that they're just going to have to be separated from their badge as soon as possible. No, this should have never happened. It shouldn't have happened in the first place. It is an opportunity for us to learn from the tragedy and to continue to work to improve. I do believe that Colonel Davis and his staff are working every day to ensure that it doesn't happen again. Change is happening now. It never comes as quickly as we would like. We have started. It will continue. And we're going to accelerate. We're going to continue to work on improvements both within state police and through the legislature if they will support those efforts. And I fully expect that they will. So now I am going to take some questions. Yes, sir.
Starting on May 10th, when Ronald Greene died, troopers told his family he died in a crash. Then, that same day, Lieutenant Clary lied about body camera videos. A year and a half after Greene's death, an email goes out from the Troop F commander to Faye Morrison about Ronald Greene dying in a crash. And then as recent as last month, we get all of the investigating troopers' notes, Albert Paxton, that apparently show the number 2 in state police, Doug Payne, was actively involved in the cover-up. Those are 4 different lies that we've uncovered. On the radio 4 months ago, you had said that the allegations of cover-ups were overblown or plain false. Has your opinion changed?
Well, first of all, I'll go back to what I previously said. Anyone who has said at any time subsequent to this incident happening that Mr. Greene died in an automobile accident, that's wrong. And if they said it, knowing that it was wrong, they lied, that is not tolerable. And I will tell you that if there's, when I said that the investigation, the stories of the cover-up were overblown, the point that I was trying to make, perhaps not as articulately as I should have, was that there was a good investigation done early on, within, I think, about 3 months of the incident, and that matters involving the evidence, including the video, the witness statements, and toxicology report, autopsy, and so forth, were all handed over to the district attorney for Union Parish. And the point I was trying to make is that the evidence was there. Everything that we've seen on the videos are contained there, and now it's been referred to the U.S. Department of Justice. So obviously that is not part of a cover-up. In fact, that's the exact opposite. If individuals said at any point after the accident, believing, or when they knew it not to be true, I should say, that Mr. Greene died in the accident, that was wrong. I said that before. And if they knew it to be wrong, they were obviously lying. And that should not be tolerated, cannot be tolerated, And we will have to continue to work to make sure that this is exposed and that it's taken care of.
Do you see it as a cover-up now, then?
Well, if, for those statements, to the extent that statements were made that Mr. Greene died in a car accident by people who knew that not to be true, that would be obviously an attempt to deflect away from what actually happened, the evidence of which that had been given to prosecutors. But I do want to say again, at no time have I said to anyone in public or in private that Mr. Greene died in a car wreck. There was obviously a pursuit, a high-speed chase, a crash, and then he was taken into custody outside of the vehicle. He then died. I have never said, as has been attributed to me, that he died in the car.
The very first thing you said was that you haven't spoken about the Ronald Greene subject as much as the press and the public would prefer, and you understand the frustration. Why was that?
Well, as I mentioned in my statement, we had been asked by the U.S. Department of Justice not to release the video publicly. I believed that they wouldn't want me characterizing it publicly either. And it was in, I think, May of 2021 when the video was leaked and became public, and then I no longer felt myself bound by those limitations. And so I began to speak on it, sometimes impromptu or sometimes when I was asked, because it was in the public domain at that point, and I didn't think that there was any chance anymore of any comments that I would make characterizing the videos that they could interfere with the investigation.
One other thing, I don't see members of the legislative right caucus here. How did you have your meeting, and what was your sense of how it went?
Well, look, it was a very serious meeting. Obviously, this is a serious and weighty topic, and I will tell you, there is a lot of concern in the Black Caucus about the work yet to be done, that has to be done in the state police. And quite frankly, there's a lot of concern about the work that has to be done all over the state of Louisiana in law enforcement as it relates to the impacts of race and racism that community experiences. And, you know, it, quite frankly, we've worked really hard over the last year with Superintendent Davis. We have made some good changes. I just went through them. I think about half of his command team at present are African American. That's more diversity we've seen in the command team. There are a number of other areas around policies and procedures and so forth where we have made progress, but there is a long way to go. And that is painfully obvious to me, and it should be, I think, obvious to everyone.
Governor,
Yeah.
in the past few days, Ronald Greene's family has called for your immediate resignation because they felt that you were not saying enough. Have you reached out to them? I'm curious.
No, not
Talk to
since
them?
that. No, not since that. In fact, well, I have visited with Mr. Greene's mother twice. I would be happy to visit with her again, and I can certainly reach out to her and talk to her. I will tell you, she's gone through something no mother should ever go through. And it was very painful for me the first day that I met her and expressed my condolences. And I knew that she was going to see a video that would break anybody's heart, broke my heart. And to think that there was his mother about to see what she saw and hear what she heard from her son in his final minutes alive, and no mother should have to deal with that. But I will say that at no time have I misled her. At no time have I said to anyone, much less her, that her son died other than the way he died. And, you know, will I talk to her? I absolutely will. Yeah, I think you know that I just came in last night from the National Governors Association. But I will reach out to her again. Yes, sir.
Governor, I had seen your reports that accused you of impeding an investigation or changing the investigation. All the reports I've seen were that you might have been complicit in some kind of state police cover-up. Why did it take so long for you, AP's reporting that you wouldn't release the records, that you just got this text? Why just release this text and there's other records they've asked for? Why take so long? Why delay that?
Well, Greg, I'm not aware of any records that I have that they have asked for that we haven't provided. I believe we provided everything that was responsive to their request for public records. So I have to disagree with you there. But there have been statements, and maybe you're not reading your competitor's newspaper, I'm not sure, but there have been statements alleging that I actively impeded, interfered with, delayed, altered, whatever you want to say, the investigation for political purposes in an election year. It is 100% false. There is no foundation to it at all. And I have no doubt that there is not a credible source who can come forward and provide any relevant, credible information to that effect. But I read it in the newspaper, and I don't know how something with absolutely no basis in fact, something that makes absolutely no sense, by the way. It is not who I am as a person. And I want the people of Louisiana to hear this. I've been governor now for a little over 6 years. That is not who I am. I wouldn't know how to begin to go about it, to ask somebody, to direct somebody, to delay a criminal investigation in order to try to gain some advantage. And what advantage is gained when the investigation is turned over to the district attorney 2.5 months before the election? Not after the election, before the election. And then, as it turns out, the district attorney referred the matter within a matter of a couple of weeks to the U.S. Department of Justice. Do the people who write these articles even bother to call and find out when the investigations were delivered? Do they have any source that is at all credible for that? And the answer is no. No. Yes?
Nakamoto again. How do you reinstill trust within state police in light of those 4, let's call them falsehood and lies that I just referenced at the beginning?
Yeah. Well, obviously, as I've said in response to your first question, we have work to do. And if, in fact, people said something that was false, knowing that it was false, that is a lie. That cannot be tolerated. And I will meet with Colonel Davis, and we will have that conversation. And there will have to, I'm assuming, be some level of investigation to corroborate what you said and what the people knew at the time they issued a statement and so forth. But if it is determined that they said that knowing it was false, in order to create a false perception of what had happened, then that obviously has to be dealt with. Yes, sir.
Justice has said before, they don't comment on pending investigations, but they seem to have made an exception in this case with their statement last night mentioning
Yeah.
you. Did you or someone on your staff ask the department to issue that statement?
What I can tell you is we were asked by an AP reporter to confirm whether or not there was a federal investigation going on with respect to me. We have no reason to believe there's one. No federal officer has ever sought to question me. There's just absolutely no reason to believe it. So how do you give that representation? And so what we did is simply ask the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Western District of Louisiana to talk to the AP individual involved and respond directly if they were so inclined. And the fact that they did come out, and I think I'm glad you asked the question, because it is very clear that, and let me just read it. While the investigation continues, recent reporting citing sources suggesting that the FBI has questioned people about the awareness of certain facts by Governor John Bel Edwards is inaccurate. The fact that the Department of Justice issued that statement is powerful because they don't normally do that. But they saw the level of misinformation, deliberate or otherwise, I don't know, but misinformation in the press about this matter and responded the way that they did.
Can you tell us who from your office called the Western District?
My executive counsel. Yes, Greg?
Tony, you said earlier that you trusted the state police to handle it, as you stated. When you, I guess some people, the family of Ronald Greene wonders how far could you trust them? When did, as you learn more, why did you continue to trust them to handle it? Why did you continue to allow their narrative to the family that Mr. Greene died in a car accident when it clearly wasn't the case?
First of all, when you say allow their narrative, I reject that contention completely. What I heard from the very first, coming from Colonel Reeves, was that Mr. Greene died after a pursuit, a high-speed chase, a wreck, and a struggle in being placed into custody. That is what I have been working off of. So I guess I have to tell you, I don't agree that I have allowed that to happen. If it has happened, as I mentioned before, by people who knew better and were saying something that was false, then that has to be dealt with. That cannot be tolerated. But to say that I allowed it, that is just wrong. That is not what happened in my interaction with the family. That is not what's happened in any statement that I have issued, public or private, to anyone. So, Greg, I just have to say, I reject your characterization that I allowed it. To the extent that it has happened and we can verify it, and it happened knowingly, we have to address that, and we will. Yes?
You got the May 10th, forgive me, you got the May 10th text from Colonel Reeves.
Yeah.
Even that showed that there was a struggle outside of the car. It was not immediate. It was clearly not the car crash that immediately killed Ronald Greene. At what point did you begin? The state police news release that following day clearly stated that he died in a car crash, or certainly implied it. At what point did you become aware that this simply wasn't true? And you may be plowing old ground here, but again, I'd like to...
Well, when you say that, and this can get a little bit complicated about whether I knew it wasn't true, it depends on what is said. So I will take what was in the AP. When I think in the most recent article that you all put out, you indicated that Mr. Greene died, I think it was from a car crash, or I forget exactly how you say it. But the question there becomes, he clearly didn't die in the crash. We should all be able to agree on that. And then the prosecutors have to figure out what the cause of death was. And so that is their job. And there is no characterization by anyone that should be false in any way, should be misleading in any way. But I personally didn't see what was put out, but I think it would depend on exactly how it was worded. And I think you may have alluded this in your question as to whether someone is being deliberately deceptive or not. But what I can say, and what I want to go back and highlight, is that Mr. Greene died a violent, terrible death at the hands of state troopers who committed criminal acts. That is a fact. And I am more than eager in my anticipation for the final result of whatever the U.S. Department of Justice is going to do, because this has taken too long. Yes, sir.
Sir, House Speaker Pushek Snyder said this week that you told him there was no need for further action from the legislature because Greene died in a wreck.
Yeah.
Is the Speaker wrong on this?
The Speaker is absolutely wrong. And I will tell you, I've never said that to anyone, public, private, Speaker, or anybody else, that Mr. Greene died in the car wreck. Never. And what I will tell you is, and you should know this, the relationship that I have with the Speaker has been especially strained, I should say, since the veto override session. And there really haven't been many conversations at all. And that conversation, because I think the reporting of it was that it was in June. First of all, the Speaker doesn't ask me for permission to have a hearing. That's not the way it works. Secondly, that meeting in June came after a meeting the previous October on the same day that I met with Black Caucus members and members of the Greene family and their lawyers, and to show the video and the evidence. I also met with the Speaker to make sure that, and the President at the same time, to make sure that they knew that I had had a meeting that morning with the Black Caucus about the Ronald Greene matter, that I was going to be bringing in a few senators and House members from the Black Caucus and allow them to see the video of the incident around Mr. Greene that obviously depicted an arrest outside the car. There was no video to show if the individual died in the wreck, right? So I have been consistent and clear with the Speaker at all times, as I have been with others. Yes, sir.
Governor, just yesterday,
State Police parted ways with Carl Cavalier. He's the whistleblower who came and spoke to WBRZ in an exclusive interview talking about all of these allegations of a cover-up. He's gone for what he did, coming to talk to the media about this case. However, you have Lieutenant Clary, who lied about his body camera footage, still on the force at State Police, as if nothing's happened. Do you see a problem with that?
Well, first of all, I'm going to refer you to Colonel Davis, who has the latest on that information, and I do not. What I will tell you is that it's my understanding that Lieutenant Clary's video, is that what you mentioned? That it was uploaded to the system, and for whatever reason, it was not found by the investigator initially. It was subsequently found and added to the original.
The report notes that he told the investigator those videos did not exist. He lied.
Yeah.
That's in the report that was filed.
Well, and if he told them that, but I will tell you, I'm going to again ask you to bring that question to Colonel Davis, because I know that there is an internal investigation to try to figure out whose word is more credible than the other when you have two individuals who, and I'm just not, from my place here, able to respond to that. But what I can tell you is that if Lieutenant Clary, in fact, lied, just like the previous statements about the mischaracterization of the incident, then there have to be immediate consequences for that as well. And I'm going to leave that to Colonel Davis, and I'll ask him to get with you, because I just don't have the latest on that.
Robert Paxson said he was actually retaliated against because he wouldn't participate in the cover-up and the lie.
Yeah. I'm going to ask you to raise that with Colonel Davis. Yes, sir.
Thank you real quick. So what do you make of the temperature, the climate of the past few days, which has been unlike anything at any time since you've been governor?
Yeah.
It's been turned up way high. So what do you make of it with what you've said today, your statements, and what other people have said that clash?
You know, it really is, I think, sad and tragic, and it's hard for me to fathom. I was actually at the National Governors Association meeting this weekend when the first article came out, and then I started seeing bits and pieces of what people were saying. And then when I look at the things that are being attributed to me, I can only tell you there just isn't a shred of truth to them. I have never mischaracterized, never, this incident. I have never said that Mr. Greene died in a car wreck, and that continues to be attributed to me. Secondly, the thing that has been said is that I directed, asked, requested that the investigation be delayed, changed, altered, whatever it was, so that it wouldn't imperil my chances for re-election in 2016. Completely false. I mean, I don't even have the words. My command of the English language is insufficient to convey to you just how totally, utterly false and without any basis in fact that is. And so when I see people repeat it as if they know it, I'm like, what is going on here? It is just wrong. And there is not a credible source out there, none, who can establish any of that. Not one. And so we're in a sad place. I mean, obviously, I feel the same thing that you do, and it is not good for this state. It's going to make it more difficult to get things done, and we have so much opportunity right now to address so many things that have been plaguing us for so long. Broadband, water, sewer, roads, bridges, $2.6 billion for coastal projects. We've got hundreds of millions of dollars more for water and sewer. You name it. We have the best budget for education in a very long time right now, so that we can invest in education and recapture the learning that was lost during the pandemic. We have so much that we can do, but yet here we are, and it's sad and it's regrettable. But the two lines that are being used against me, as I can distill them down, are completely false. Yes, ma'am.
Governor Ann Roberts at WVUE. Some lawmakers have called for an investigation into you and your office regarding your knowledge about this. Is this an investigation that you would welcome?
Well, it's an investigation that is totally unnecessary, and one that the Department of Justice has said they're not engaged in right now as they do their work on this matter. I've told you what I knew and when I knew it, what I've done and what I haven't done, and those things are fact. They are absolute fact. So when people say, well, we just need to go and investigate this, I can't tell you that I welcome an investigation that is an absolute witch hunt with no basis in fact. Where would that stop? Anytime you wanted to register your displeasure or try to handcuff someone that you may have a political disagreement with, you convene some sort of an investigation? So no, I don't welcome that. That's not good for us. One more. Yes, sir.
You mentioned your strained relationship with the House Speaker. Are folks supposed to read between the lines there and believe his comments yesterday were more about politics than the pursuit of justice?
Well, they can read them for whatever they're worth. I'm just telling you that the Speaker ascribes to me things that are just not true. Just not true. He was at GOSEP with me back in October of 2020 when I told him what we were going to be showing the family and members of the Black Caucus. I never told him that Mr. Greene died in a car wreck. Never. So if he says that, I really, to be honest with you, I want to be charitable and say that he is mistaken. But the forceful nature that he has said it causes me to really be reluctant to be that charitable. I would want to be able to say it because it does no one any good if we can't have any form of a working relationship going forward. And I'm certainly willing to do that. Okay, look, thank you all for being here tonight. I'm going to wrap up with just a couple of more comments. I thank you for being here, but you all are here responding to two utterly false, baseless lines of allegations against me. And I just want to tell the people of Louisiana one more time, I have never told anyone, public or private, that Mr. Greene died in a car wreck. Number two, I have never asked, directed, or otherwise caused anybody to alter, delay, change, modify, whatever you want to say, the investigation. It didn't happen. And if they're saying I did it in order to make sure that I could prevail in 2016, then why would the investigation be turned over to the district attorney 2.5 months before the election? Why would he then refer it out to the Trump Department of Justice? That doesn't make any sense. It didn't happen. And I will repeat this one more time. There is not a single credible source who can establish that. Doesn't exist. It is sad. It is regrettable that I am here under these circumstances talking about these things. But unfortunately, it is unavoidable. But we can do better. We must do better. And we have to find a way to govern again. Thank you.